Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Callum again and I'm here to talk to you about video games. So first of all, if you prefer my TV and film content, don't worry, that'll be back next week. For now though, I'm going to be talking about some of the games that made me. Okay, so that's a bit vague, isn't it? Fair point. The games that made me doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. Basically, it's just a bunch of games that I really enjoyed growing up. A bunch of games that really sort of typify my childhood. Also, because I've talked about games before in other videos, in this one at least I'm going to try not and touch on those. Instead, what I'm going to do is try and come up with a bunch of new games I haven't mentioned previously, or at least ones that I haven't gone into depth in other videos. If you do want to hear my thoughts on any of those that you think I might have missed, there'll be a link to them up in the cards right about now. Right, enough of all that preamble, let's jump right in. And I'm going to be beginning with probably my favourite game of all time. If it's not my favourite game of all time, it definitely spawned a love of a very particular genre of games. The game I'm talking about is Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. Alright, now I've already broken my only rule. I have already mentioned this game before. However, I only mentioned it, so I think it's fair game to talk about it in a bit more depth. If you don't know, Knights of the Old Republic, or KOTOR as it's also known, is an RPG game based in the Star Wars universe. However, it's set many years before the cinematic entries. Now if you haven't played this game, or indeed any of the others that I'm going to mention, I'm not going to spoil it. I don't want to ruin any of these games, especially the story-driven ones a lot like Knights of the Old Republic. So I won't go into too many details on plot. However, there may be a few minor spoilers and that will apply to the whole video, just so you're aware right now. Now there's a whole bunch of reasons why I think Knights of the Old Republic is a fantastic game. The first of which I think is the story that it tells. Now as I've mentioned before, Knights of the Old Republic sort of tells its own contained story within the Star Wars universe. It doesn't really necessarily connect to any of the main entries into the canon, and in fact, it itself is no longer canon. At the time it was released, every Star Wars property counted in the mythos. However, when Disney took over, there was a massive purge of all of the properties, and most of this stuff became referred to as legends. Now that's not a problem, it still has its place, and it still could be canon. There have been theories for a long time that they're going to be releasing a sort of Knights of the Old Republic film. Personally, I'm hoping it's whatever Taika Waititi's going to be doing in the Star Wars universe, because that would be epic. Now, once again, I'm not going to spoil the story, but basically you're a sort of Jedi exile and you have to explore the universe, mostly in the Outer Rim, going to a lot of different planets that aren't explored in any of the films or TV shows. It brings a massive scope to the Star Wars universe and brings a whole bunch of different aspects and fantastic different places to explore. I think the story of KOTOR is definitely one of the driving points to what makes this a fantastic game. Now I think what really makes KOTOR great isn't the story. And don't get me wrong, the story is fantastic and I love it. But really what makes this what it is the characters. Now, I think the characters in any BioWare game are fantastic. This spreads to Mass Effect and to Dragon Age as well. To be honest, I've not played Dragon Age, but I do hear great things about the characters. However, Mass Effect is probably one of my other favourite games of all time. Now, what KOTOR really does really well is develop a whole bunch of standalone characters who have a lot of great depth behind them. You want to do all their loyalty missions, you want to sort of max them out and build your team to be as strong as it can be. You want to sort of find out all the different aspects about them so that you've got a well-rounded sort of group of friends around you effectively. Building this universe, building your perfect team. It's just one of the best things about any BioWare franchise. It's this sort of collection aspect that you've got as well, where you have to go round and when that little text box comes up at the bottom of the screen saying this person has been added to your party, you just get a little bit of excitement. Well, I mean, I get a little bit of excitement when that happens. I don't know about everyone else, but I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I think Knights of the Old Republic is just a fantastic example of an RPG. It's executed really well. The combat is a little bit sort of lacking, but I still think it's great. It sort of almost has a turn-based aspect to it, like you'd expect from Dungeons and Dragons and the like, but it doesn't sort of slow it down quite as much as games like Lord of the Rings: The Third Age do, or some of the Final Fantasy games. It's not so much about sort of calmly picking what your next move is going to be from a bunch of lists. Instead, you're sort of queuing up moves as if you're sort of taking your turns and everything, but they just sort of happen in a bit more real time. It's a little bit clunky looking, but it works really well, and again, it's the story and the characters that you're really there for. You're not there for groundbreaking gameplay. Now, I've played through both KOTOR and KOTOR 2 a number of times, and in fact, actually, I've only just started playing through KOTOR 1 again recently. They're such fantastic games, and what I love the most about them, really, as well as the characters and the storyline, is just how well they expand the Star Wars universe. They do a fantastic job of this, and not only that, within Star Wars, they're often sort of regarded as like the best games even within that franchise. And that's really saying something. To be honest with you, I don't disagree. I think that this is the best Star Wars game there is. It's a little bit close maybe with Battlefront and maybe Rogue Squadron, but for me, KOTOR definitely takes the prize. Now next up, I'm going to be talking about Halo, and in particular, Halo 3. Now I love the entire series of these games. However, Halo 3 just holds, I don't know, much stronger memories for me. It always reminds me of when I'd invite my mates around and we'd all play games, quite often like, you know, sleepovers, that kind of stuff. Halo was always a go-to, along with another game that I'm going to be mentioning a little bit later on. What makes Halo fantastic though, and especially Halo 3, is the multiplayer aspect of it. This whole idea. I mean, screen watching and spawn hunting, these are just things that you have to deal with. Those "you're a cheater" arguments is somehow what makes it great. No game, I think, will beat Halo in terms of couch multiplayer, like local multiplayer. And those LAN parties as well that everybody talks about when it comes to Halo are legendary. I think Halo's sort of place as a multiplayer juggernaut cannot be disputed. And why would you? It's fantastic and always a lot of fun. Now, why haven't I put Call of Duty in this place? Don't get me wrong, I love Call of Duty, especially Modern Warfare 1 and 2. They're both games that we played a lot growing up, me and my friends. However, I think Halo really is much more important to me. Mostly because it's just one of those games that, one, I could play with my friends, but I could also play with my brother and sort of his friends as well. It was a game that we all shared as a sort of joint thing. Also, the thing I like about Halo is it's a really good shooting game in general, but it also adds all these gimmicks as well that other games don't have. The vehicles that you can ride in, whether that's the way overpowered Banshees and Ghosts, or the Warthogs and tanks, that just make the game just have this other element. As well as that, you've got like energy swords and grav hammers that just add so many different dimensions to this game and make it so much more fun. It's a true precursor to games like Destiny and Overwatch, and it really shows. It's just one of those fantastic staples that anyone should have in their games library. Now, as I mentioned, the next game is going to be another staple of the sleepover, and that game is Mashed Fully Loaded. Now, this is a game that we could never not play when my friends came round. It's a really fun game, and it's just got this real element of just party playing fun. Mashed is a vehicular combat game. Kind of think Mario Kart, but the weapons are much more deadly, it's a lot more violent, and it's not so much a race unless you play in the dedicated race mode that the game has. Basically, in order to score points, you have to be the last one standing on the track. And because of this, and because when you play in this survival mode there is no sort of end goal, you could kind of do endless loops of the track with other people getting points at different times, no any one person winning, and you could play one game that can last for hours, which has happened with me and my friends a few times. What I really love about this game though, is the fact that it's so accessible, in a very similar way to games like Mario Kart in fact. Basically, pretty much anyone can play it and no one's particularly bad, and if you are, you're not bad for long. It's very easy to pick up. Sometimes you might win one round, and then in the next round you absolutely storm out. Which isn't a problem. That's the thing. I don't think there's been a single time when I've played this game where someone has had complete dominance. And even if they had, the next time when we come back at it next week or whatever, someone completely different is absolutely dominating. But that is really what makes this game so fun. Anyone could just pick up a controller and have a great time. Not only that, but there's a lot of tracks on this game that really add to it. One of my favourites is this one that's basically an entire sort of ellipsis. It's almost a bit like a NASCAR track, except it's entirely covered in ice. You've got these two really long straights and then these just complete 180 curves at the end. I don't remember the name of the map, but we'll put it up as a caption right about now so you can see, and maybe a picture somewhere over here or something. But this was one of the most fun tracks we ever played. There's also a whole bunch of others as well, and it just adds so much to the game, and the endless replayability of it is what makes it fantastic. Mashed is a very fun game. I don't know how far it spreads. I don't know if anyone else even knows about it except for me, my friends, and my family. But it's a game that I would come back to every single time. And if I could now, I'd be playing it right now with them. Okay, so I'm going to change it up a little bit now, and I'm going to be talking about a more single-player experience. The game I'm going to be talking about next is Grand Theft Auto, and in particular, Grand Theft Auto 4. Now this is the Grand Theft Auto game that was set in Liberty City, which is a kind of copy of New York. And at the time it was released, it was praised heavily for just how good an impression of the city it was. Not only that, but it's also a much darker game than other entries in the series. It's sort of a much more grounded, gritty, typical New York mobster kind of storyline. And that really adds a lot to it. It does get a lot of criticism though. Most people don't really like this sort of gritty realism that it tried to bring in, and sort of continued with GTA 5 as well. The games before were a little bit more wacky and out there. However, I think that this was a good decision. I think that the thing that GTA does really well is sort of almost a kind of Black Mirror-esque kind of thing. It holds a sort of mirror up to society and shows a lot of the flaws. And it does that even better with a lot of realism involved. Also, some of the wackier stuff that you can do, like flying a helicopter around and sort of sniping people off buildings randomly in the middle of Times Square, is much better in this sort of realistic sort of experience. The one thing that I would say is that I don't like the fact that they removed quite so many of the cheats. There still are cheats in GTA 4 and in GTA 5, but not the extensive repertoire of cheats that you could call upon in the earlier games, particularly San Andreas, which is a lot of people's favourite in the franchise. What you've also got to take into account with GTA 4 is it was the first on the sort of Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 generation of consoles. And because of that, they really wanted to show off what they could do. And they did that really well. The driving physics feel much more realistic, as does a lot of the running and a lot of the interactions that you have. Also, the cutscenes look really good. They didn't go full cinematic with them, and they still look like they run in the game engine, but they do that really well. GTA 4 is a fantastic game, and a lot of missions from it as well are sort of hailed as being some of the best missions of the entire franchise. If you take that into account, you can't sort of put aside how much of an impact this game really has. Now obviously I love the single player campaign on this game, and that is a fantastic aspect and definitely a core reason why I love this game. However, it's not just that. There's so much more to this world that I think is fantastic. Obviously there's the thing of just playing it sort of almost as a real world sim, which a lot of people do. That's why the sort of dating stuff happens, and why you can go bowling and play darts with your friends and that kind of stuff. And all that stuff is great as well. It's what makes GTA fantastic. A lot of people don't like that though. A lot of people don't like all of these pointless sort of menial mini games, but they've always existed. Like in San Andreas, where you could go down the gym. The only thing is that a lot of these don't have they don't have ramifications on your character as they used to. But that's not a major big deal. I think what makes the game really good is the fact that you can do all this stuff along with the story campaign as well. However, that's not the only thing either. The thing that I really love about this game is the way that me and my friends used to play it. We didn't play it to win the game, to complete it or whatever. We just sort of did a sort of pass and play mechanic. Basically, one person would get the controller and you try and go on the maddest rampage you possibly could, getting the coolest death as well by the end of it. If you went on for too long, you were called a controller hog or whatever, and you had yourself ripped apart by your mates. But what was really fun was just trying to one-up each other all the time. Every time you die, you pass it on to the next guy, and you just keep going until you just have a great time. You've got laughs all round, everyone's having fun. And the good thing about it is as well is that it's something that can be going on in the background as well. You can have one person having their go, doing their rampage, doing whatever they want to do. Whether that's go into the middle of Times Square and kill a bunch of tourists, or just drive out into the sea on a boat for hours, or outrun the police in any wacky weird way you want to do. While the other people in the room can be doing other stuff. They could be on their laptop, on MSN back in the day or whatever. And we can just have this great time with each other. And it's what made the game really good for us. It was sort of not so much collaborative, but it was just something that we could do together. That didn't have to be an everyone involved, competing with each other kind of Halo or MASH kind of experience. I love GTA, and this game in particular holds a lot more memories for me. I was a little bit too young for the games that came before it, but I did play quite a few of them and went back to them as well. And obviously I've played GTA 5 since, but as a much older person. GTA 4 for me was the first real foray into this world, and I just loved it. That's all I can say. Now, from running down prostitutes in New York to collecting cute little pocket monsters, I'm going to the Pokemon franchise for my next pick. And what I'm going with is Pokemon Pearl. Okay, so I played earlier games in the franchise, including Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Emerald, I believe, and also Pokemon Blue. But I never really sort of owned those. Pokemon Pearl was the first game that I completed myself without any help. With the earlier games, I always felt like I was just sort of borrowing my brother's copy of Pokemon Blue, and he'd help me when I couldn't complete a gym or whatever. But with Pokemon Pearl, I really had ownership over my team, over my Infernape, which for some reason I named Bob. Yeah, don't really know why I called him Bob, to be honest with you. He's a fire monkey, doesn't make any sense. Now this was close, to be honest with you, because as much as I love Pokemon Pearl, there is a Pokemon game that I do prefer, and I'll give it a quick honourable mention, because that's Pokemon Stadium, which technically is a spin-off game to the main ones. I won't go into any more detail on it, but I do love that game, and I probably will talk about it another time. To be honest with you, I'll probably talk about a few Pokemon games in other videos, but for now, Pokemon Pearl is the one I'm going to go on. Now obviously, I just love Pokemon as a franchise. Absolutely love it, and still do. I mean, when I got Pokemon Sword, I completed it within weeks. And to be honest with you, the only reason why it took me that long is because at the time my girlfriend was also playing through Zelda, and we've only got one Switch. We're not made of money. So because I've always had this love of Pokemon, it was really important to me to sort of have my own version, have a game that was really mine. But also, what was really fantastic about when I owned Pokemon Pearl is that at the same time, one of my best friends owned Pokemon Diamond. And this is exactly what Pokemon is for. That's why they have the version exclusives. We'd compete all the time with who had the better team. We purposely chose different starters so we could have a bit more sort of going for us, a bit more difference between us. And we'd compare all of the version exclusive things about each of our copies. And it was just fantastic. I just love these games, and Sinnoh is probably my favourite region. Maybe tied with Galar. I do really love the new Galar region. But Sinnoh just has this place in my heart that I just don't think will be dislodged. I, like many others in the Pokemon community, really want them to announce remakes of Diamond and Pearl, which has been heavily rumoured for a long time now. And in fact, in the most recent sort of Pokemon Direct, where they released all those weird spin-off games that they came up with, everyone thought that they were going to go for a Diamond and Pearl remake then. It's not out of the question though, and there have been a lot of hints that it may be coming. So if you are looking forward to it, it may still be in the pipeline. But let's just fingers crossed and let's hope that we get these games that come out soon. Okay, so I've talked about quite a few games now already, but I'm going to talk about one more in this video, and believe me, there are many, many more games that could have been included. But the last one that I'm going to go for in this video at least is Soul Calibur 2. Now, Soul Calibur is a series of one-on-one 3D fighting games. in the sort of vein of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. However, this one sort of includes a lot more weapons. The main thing about Soul Calibur is it's way over the top, massively convoluted and sort of nonsensical mythos that surrounds it, with everyone's stories overlapping in many different ways, and there's been sort of many different rewrites and contradictions that have come in more games recently. But that's what makes Soul Calibur fantastic. Now, most people love a fighting game, but everyone has their own favourite franchise, whether that's one of the ones I mentioned before, or whether it's Super Smash Bros, or many others that are out there. It just so happens that my particular favourite is Soul Calibur, even back as far as the Dreamcast original version that I played for the first time. Now, I think Soul Calibur 2 is probably the peak of the franchise, and there's a lot of reasons why I think that sort of shape that opinion. Basically, there are so many different game modes that make this fantastic. In fact, I think the only thing missing from this game to really make it the absolute, without question, the definitive Soul Calibur game is a character creation system, which obviously only came in Soul Calibur 3. The thing about Soul Calibur 2 though is just the wide range of ways that you can play it. Whether it's team battles, whether it's the typical arcade mode or the story modes, or the Weapon Master mode, which was really fantastic. It had you exploring this sort of world that it creates and collecting weapons and costumes and other characters along the way. I still think it's the best kind of main sort of storyline gameplay mechanic that they've done in Soul Calibur so far. It really does sort of typify these games. Really is what makes them all fantastic. Also, this one has one of the bigger rosters of people. Other than, I think, maybe Soul Calibur 3, which has a very large amount of people, some of which only appeared in that game. Now, the reason why this game in particular is on my mind is because recently they added Soul Calibur 6 to Xbox Game Pass. So obviously I downloaded it and gave it a go. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I was quite disappointed. The roster's good, the graphics are great, and to be honest with you, it's probably the best that the game has actually played in combat in quite a while. There are a few revisions that, like, a lot of people don't like. There's a lot of the sort of grapple breaks and stuff like that that have kind of been a bit broken. But I think there's one real major aspect about Soul Calibur 6 that is really bad. In fact, no, scratch that, there's two. The first one is the lack of game modes that existed from previous ones. Gone are team battles and all of that kind of stuff, and the sort of one-hit kill mechanics that you had a lot of the time as well. And their version of the sort of Weapon Master mode is this sort of really long storyline thing that is a bit slow, and it's kind of a text-based adventure most of the time, just interspersed with the odd battle. And that's the real problem. Because the real big issue with this game isn't anything to do with the game modes. It's much more of a basic issue. And that's loading times. With a fast-paced action fighting game, you don't want to be waiting ages for it to load up, only for the game to end in maybe 30 seconds. The thing is, I found myself on occasion waiting for up to about 2 minutes for a fight to start. I don't know if this is just me. I don't know if it's a problem that's there for everyone, maybe because I downloaded it from Game Pass, it's a bit slower or something. Maybe some of you out there who own the disc copy could probably tell me if it's a bit better for you. Or if you've got it on the One X, maybe it runs better, which I don't doubt it does. But the thing is, if a game like this can't run really well on the Xbox One S, the one that I've got, then I think there's something wrong with it. The thing is, earlier games in the franchise never took this long. And the fact that they all had like this sort of team battle or a couple of different people, you could have a backup person on your team kind of thing, that would instantly come into battle. Soul Calibur 4 did this fantastically. You defeat one person and then instantly the next person comes in. Sometimes on Soul Calibur 6 you've got to fight 3 different enemies in the story mode, but in between each person you have to wait for like 30 seconds to a minute for it. And it just makes the whole thing feel like a labour, much slower. Now anyway, I'm getting way off topic here because I'm not here to talk about Soul Calibur 6, I'm here to talk about Soul Calibur 2 and why it's my favourite game. And it's because it's so simple. It doesn't have any of the thrills or anything that the sort of way over the top bits. There's none of these sort of special finishing moves and all that kind of stuff. It's basically just a very good fighting game. It's really fun to play, endlessly replayable. I've played every single story mode with every single character that you can, and I just love it. It's definitely, I think, the best game in the franchise by a long way. And I think it's a real shame that Soul Calibur's not been able to live up to it since, but I mean, they came a bit close. I'll be honest with you, Soul Calibur 4 was really good. The whole Yoda Darth Vader thing was a bit otherworldly, but pardon the pun for otherworldly. But it wasn't the same as Soul Calibur 2, which I definitely think is the best one. So there we are. There's just a few of the games that I look back on most fondly. Now, as I said, there are a lot more that I think are really important games to me. So if you're one of my friends watching, don't be offended if I didn't mention one of those games that we had a lot of fun playing. I will probably come to it in another one of these videos. But for now at least, what is your favourite game growing up? Please let me know in the comments because I'm fascinated to know. And also, if you ever played Mashed Fully Loaded, also let me know because I want to know if that was just a sort of me and my friends thing. Also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe as normal. And please, if you can, consider donating to my Ko-fi page. Anything that you can spare goes a long way to help support this channel and keep us making these videos. And with all that being said, I'll see you next time for another video.